Welcome, everybody, to the NFL Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm your host for the NFL Show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, Sam Teets. How you doing, Sam?
Doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me.
I didn't really have any choice today. You were the last person left. I'm just kidding. All right, we haven't got a chance to talk about the championship games. We're going to start off with the Titans and the Chiefs. And do you think maybe we've found something with Patrick Mahomes where he can outdo Andy Reid's coaching?
A little bit. I think Patrick Mahomes is that kind of quality quarterback where he can just play well and he can carry a team, he can take over certain situations. It'll be interesting to see, though, how he does that against San Francisco in a few weeks now, though.
Yeah, and I think looking at that game, this is as much a toss-up as I've ever seen coming into a Super Bowl, I think.
But yeah, I'm happy about it too. Hopefully, it'll be a good game, a game that's really enjoyable compared to last year, where it was more of a defensive brawl, and it felt like New England was winning the whole time.
Well, it was enjoyable because that's what I predicted, though.
Oh, okay, so you got it right, which made everything better.
Yeah, because one of my favorite Super Bowls was that Seattle butt kicking over Denver, because I picked Seattle by at least 20 points if you go back and listen to those shows, and I was mocked. So I thought that was a great game. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Works out like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mahomes Mahomes was 23 for 35, 294, 3 touchdowns. I still would worry about a team though that can't run the ball. Damian Williams, 17 carries for 45 yards. Most of the running was done by Mahomes, and it's not like he's Lamar Jackson when you do that. But the weapons here, Sammy Watkins was the star on this day. And I think what the Titans did is Vrabel kind of Belichicked them, and he took away the Chiefs' biggest weapon, or what he thought was the biggest weapon, in Travis Kelce. But you take away Travis Kelce, one of these other guys is going to beat you.
Yeah, because the Chiefs have so many vertical threats. And we talked about Sammy Watkins and Tyreek Hill. They also have McCole Hardman, who's just a speedster. And I know he really didn't get anything done on Sunday, but think about it. If he gets open in the Super Bowl, they can just – I mean, Patrick Mahomes specializes in throwing the ball deep. And Cole Hardman's a speedster, so they just unleash him and Tyreek Hill going down the sideline, and you just chuck one up. There's a chance for a big play there. So yeah. I feel like the Tennessee had, they couldn't take away every option. There was just no way for them to stop Kansas City's offense.
Yeah, and when you look at Tennessee, I thought Ryan Tannehill played well, 21 for 31, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns. The problem was Derrick Henry, 19 carries, 69 yards, and it really felt to me, and I didn't think the Titans would do this, but once they fell behind, it seemed like they kind of went away from what got them there.
Yeah, it looked almost like they panicked for a little bit. It looked like they kind of lost themselves, and they decided basically to stop throwing the ball. I mean, you look at the past games, Derrick Henry against Baltimore, 30 carries. Against New England, 34 carries. Against Houston, 32 carries. And then only 19 carries against Kansas City. And I know they weren't having great success, but at some point you kind of got to start to stick with it. This is what's gotten you here, and you abandoned it in the biggest game of your season. So I feel like they probably should have stuck with it a little bit more, and they kind of freaked out in the second half.
Yeah, and I think from the start of the third quarter, and if you look at that third quarter, nobody scored. So this is a game where they're down 21-17 going into the fourth quarter. They went the entire third quarter and kind of went away from what they were doing. And I think with the Tennessee Titans, I think you got to re-sign Ryan Tannehill, and you've got to get him another weapon or two on offense.
Yeah, because right now it's Derrick Henry, who's also a free agent, and you've got A.J. Brown, who's coming off his rookie year. He's pretty good, but alone, there's only so much he can do by himself. You got to give him somewhere else to look for it. And we talked about with Mahomes, he's got Sammy Watkins and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and they need some guys on Tennessee to kind of mirror that with more players around Tannehill. All
right, we go to the NFC, and I think the score looks closer to what the game actually felt like. It was 27-0 at halftime, 37-20 final. And Aaron Rodgers, 31 for 39, 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Aaron Jones, 12 carries, 56 yards. I think the issue we have here is I don't even know if the Packers had 100 yards at halftime. And at some point, we got to question Aaron Rodgers, don't we? Because we all decided to question Drew Brees a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and it's been a while since the Packers have made it to the Super Bowl. I mean, it feels like yesterday, but it's been basically a decade at this point. I mean, maybe not a decade entirely, but it's been a while. And they haven't had the success they're used to in a couple of years. And I feel like Aaron Rodgers is not the same guy. Like, even during the regular season, we talked about this with the quarterback rankings. He doesn't look like the MVP version of Aaron Rodgers that we're used to.
Yeah, and when we look on the other side, Jimmy Garoppolo, 6 for 8 for 77 yards. That's very efficient.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically what the Titans did with Ryan Tannehill last couple of weeks, if you think about it. They ran the ball like crazy, and they made him throw it a couple of times, and it worked out. They were scoring, so they didn't have to throw the ball.
Yeah, I mean, Raheem Mostert, 29 carries, 220 yards. Deebo Samuel ran the ball twice for 43. Tevin Coleman, 6 for 21. Matt Breida just 1 for 2. The thing about this team and the Chiefs, the thing that would worry me with the Chiefs is they've had trouble stopping teams that could run the ball. The thing about the Niners, though, they don't just have one style of running back. They got 2 or 3 guys, especially if Tevin Coleman's able to play, that can beat you in different ways, I think, which makes it really hard to stop. And the Green Bay Packers, you know, their weakness on defense, I thought, coming into this game was stopping the run, and that proved to be true here.
Yeah, because they got absolutely exposed. And if you look at the 49ers, they don't have a bad offensive line. They got a decent offensive line. And then they've got George Kittle, who's a monster in the run blocking game. Even if he's not catching passes, he can still be a quality blocker for you and just shut down whoever he's on. So the 49ers really, their lifeblood on offense is the running game at this point. And if Jimmy Garoppolo throws 8 to 10 passes a game, I mean, they can still win. And probably it's honestly better if he doesn't throw many passes against Kansas City because you've got guys like Tyrann Mathieu back there who can make plays. I feel like they definitely do better against Kansas City, so they just focus on running the ball another 40-something times.
Well, I think anybody would because that's Kansas City's weakness. They can rush the passer, but they can't stop the run, especially between the tackles. And I think that's what makes this game so interesting because I think when I look at it, the 49ers are by far the most complete team in the NFL. They're a lot more complete than what they're going to go up against. But Patrick Mahomes can change all that.
Yeah, because Mahomes really is the X factor here, and that sounds kind of crazy because everyone knows what Patrick Mahomes is. It's just that no one can really stop him in a way that we've seen yet. No one's figured him out to a sense where they can just shut him down. So I do think he's the kind of the key here for everything, really, because if he can find a way to avoid sacks and maybe get some rushing yards, and of course find all those receivers that he has, then the case he can stay in the game. But if Mahomes struggles a little bit, then it's just basically game over because San Francisco could run away with this game, I think.
Yeah, and when I look at the Packers, the thing that really worries me here is head coach Matt LaFleur. And he addressed the media Wednesday about defensive coordinator Mike Pettine's future. And he says, yeah, we're still trying to work through everything right now, just trying to evaluate everything. I think our defense did a lot of great things, but obviously the last game was really disappointing in terms of our performance. It just wasn't good enough, especially when you get to a championship game like that. My problem is, it sounds to me like he's going to throw Mike Pettine under the bus when his offense was maybe more incompetent than the defense. And the reason I say that is, it's hard to stop a running game when your offense is 3 and out, when you're throwing interceptions on your own side of the field. I mean, the offense to me was just as big an issue as the defense in this game.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the offensive numbers for Green Bay. I mean, they looked decent at the end of the game, but that doesn't tell the full story. So the first half, Green Bay was shut out. I mean, they weren't doing anything. They weren't moving the ball at all. So you can point to them at the end of the game and say, oh, well, they had a decent game. But no, they really didn't because they were behind by 27-0 at halftime. So you're right. When you're getting shut out like that, there's so much more pressure on your defense. And your defense is on the field for such a long extent of time that you get worn out by halftime. So I can't blame Green Bay's defense entirely for this one.
Yeah, and I think it's really sad that LaFleur, who I think has a lot of shortcomings as a head coach anyways, is trying to throw somebody else under the bus. He didn't do his job if he was calling the offense.
Yeah, no, definitely. He didn't live up to the standards that he's supposedly preaching they should have been at. Because, I mean, that offense wasn't doing anything, like I said, the entire first half. I don't understand how you can point the finger when your own unit didn't perform.
Well, he's just trying to get the heat off himself. That's how head coaches do it a lot of times in the NFL and college.
Yeah.
How many times have we seen a guy fire somebody on his assistant coaching staff just to keep his job?
Well, yeah, and then 2 years later he gets fired. Someone's like, "Oh, really? It was his fault." I mean, you'll figure it out eventually who's the problem. But this is a little stopgap right now to buy him some extra time.
All right, the Jacksonville Jaguars. It seems like they want to lose, as now they have hired ex-Redskins coach Jay Gruden as the offensive coordinator. And Gruden was the offensive coordinator in Cincinnati, so I've seen him up close and personal. I don't think he's very good. I thought he was a bad hire as a head coach for the Redskins, which ended up to be true. And the Jaguars, to me, I mean, 2 years ago they looked set up to be a player in the AFC for the next 5 years. Now they look like they're set up to maybe get the number one pick over the next couple of years.
Yeah, they've really fallen off, and it was largely, I think, because Leonard Fournette had a bad year, and then Blake Bortles got exposed for what he was, and that offense really fell apart, and that kind of collapsed the defense as well. Because the defense does have some talented players, talking about like Yannick Ngakoue and Calais Campbell, and they had Jalen Ramsey for a little bit, although he was a problem because of his temper tantrum and his antics on the sideline and off the field. But, yeah, they've really just fallen apart. There's still players on that defense who are still decent, but they've lost the offense entirely pretty much.
Yeah, and they still have no quarterback because I think Gardner Minshew is a guy that's just a good backup, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I could see that. He's definitely like a backup on a good team, and for those lower-class teams, he probably is a starter, and Jacksonville's definitely one of them. So I could see him starting for them next year, but that's not saying much about his ability.
All right, so let's look at Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. Or not Aaron Rodgers, but Phillip Rivers. And Phillip Rivers has moved to Florida. Do you think that that means maybe Tampa Bay or Miami is his next stopping point?
I mean, Tampa Bay would make sense because I think he could fit better in the Bruce Arians offense and being less turnover-prone than Jameis Winston. But at the same point, Phillip Rivers is not a mobile quarterback, and that offensive line is terrible, and that running game is terrible in Tampa Bay right now. So I don't know what you would expect from that team if you're Phillip Rivers. And it's the same thing in Miami. Miami's this whole wash right now. Miami, you got basically nothing. I'm looking at every team's free agency articles right now. I'm looking at Miami. I'm like, wow, you've got no one hitting the free agency block because you've got no one on your team. So
yeah, but they also have
really,
like 700 draft picks.
That's true. So if you're Phillip Rivers and you're talking Miami, you got to figure out what's your plan here. That's the thing is they got to figure out what Miami's planning on doing with those draft picks. Because who knows? He doesn't strike me as the mentor type kind of guy. So I don't know if you would want to have them take Tua with their top pick in this upcoming draft and then end up mentoring him for a year or two.
Yeah, to me, Tampa Bay probably makes the most sense because he does have weapons there. And this is the NFL. A couple free agent signings and a good draft, and you could fill a lot of holes. I mean, hell, would we have the 4 teams that played to go to the Super Bowl this last week? We only had one that was even in the playoffs last year, didn't we?
Yeah, Kansas City, right? I think that was the only one.
Yeah, because Tennessee didn't make it last year. San Francisco was a last-place team. I think the Packers were damn near a last-place team. So a lot of that was because Rodgers was hurt, but it doesn't take much to flip it around in the NFL. It's not like the NBA or Major League Baseball where usually it'll take a couple of years to build it. And you've got a free agent market that has some interesting guys on here with Teddy Bridgewater, Andy Dalton, Nick Foles, Cam Newton, Marcus Mariota. I guess you could probably throw Alex Smith in there. And if you're drafting in the second round, you may be able to get a guy like Jalen Hurts, Jordan Love, Jake Fromm. Florida International's James Morgan, I think, is a guy that, as the college showcases games play out, people are going to become more enamored with him. And that's on top of the Joe Burrow and the Tua Tagovailoa. So there's a lot of quarterback options here. And Chicago's another place that's interesting. And I still think, and I think we talked about this before, if I'm New Orleans, I'd roll with Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, we do. I think we talked about this last week. We were going on about how Drew Brees looked a little old there at the end of the postseason run for New Orleans this past year and how he hasn't really delivered for them in the last couple of seasons. I think really you got to look for the future of the team at this point, because this team can still be competitive because you still got Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas on offense. And you've got some offensive linemen there. You've got some good linebackers and some good guys along the defensive line. So you have pieces to be competitive in the future. I just don't think you can commit to Drew Brees, because what happens when he retires a year down the line and suddenly you're looking for a franchise quarterback. So you can't keep both Brees and Bridgewater again. You're not going to end up with both these guys in your roster. So you have to make a decision between the two now.
Oh, man. Did you see that this is 9 minutes ago from NewJersey.com that, let's see, Antonio Brown has locked himself in the house and refusing to cooperate with police on a domestic disturbance dispute. That's hard to believe.
Oh, did he? Jeez.
Yeah.
Did he really? Yeah, he did. I see it now on Twitter. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
That's
Okay, the troubled free agent wide receiver allegedly locked himself in his house when police attempted to contact him multiple times since an alleged battery incident involving Antonio Brown and his trainer took place on Tuesday afternoon. Brown's trainer, Glenn Holt, described himself as an associate of Brown to the police, was taken into custody and charged with burglary and battery on Tuesday. It says here that they don't think Brown will ever play in the NFL again. What a shock.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't imagine after this, because his agent cut ties with him like a week ago, I think.
Yeah,
There's
Drew
no way.
Rosenhaus. And Drew Rosenhaus is not a guy, who... Oh, here we go. The latest piece of Brown nonsense happened last Monday when he threw a sex-themed gummies at the mother of his children during a domestic dispute, and Brown yelled at the woman to have a bag of dicks.
Oh, boy.
He's a classy
guy.
What
do you even have to, what do you even have to say to that at this point? I mean,
I don't want a bag of dicks. That's what I would say to him.
Yeah, probably.
What do you mean probably? You think I'd want a bag?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
I don't think anyone wants anything to do with Antonio Brown at this point. I think everyone who supported him initially during this craziness has backed off of him now, because it's toxic. It's terrible. I mean, you cannot justify supporting Antonio Brown at this point based on what he's doing. Like, this isn't acceptable.
Yeah, and I would say the only place that probably would give him a chance now would be Andy Reid and the Chiefs next year. What do you think?
I don't even know about that, man. I don't even know about that.
I don't know. Tyreek Hill's pretty low down there, and he's still playing for him.
Yeah, they did get rid of Kareem Hunt, though. So,
well, yeah, but
50-50.
That was after they defended Kareem Hunt until video evidence came out. So,
and then they got all the backlash. But Antonio Brown's a different level of everything at this point.
Yeah, I know. So what do you think the chances are? Because I read a story today that the Miami Dolphins may be willing to trade everything they've got left, which would just be draft picks, to get up to number 1 to take Joe Burrow.
Well, I mean, if you're Miami, that kind of makes sense, because you need that guy. You need him soon, within the next year or two. And that really doesn't say much about what you think about Tua, though, because they are in a spot where they could legitimately get Tua, and you're willing to give everything to get to that number 1 overall spot. You're not showing much confidence in him at that spot, so you don't feel like Tua's your guy, and you're trying to go all out for throw. It makes sense. I understand it. I wouldn't do it if I'm Cincinnati, but it makes sense. I just don't see it happening. I don't think Cincinnati's going to agree to it.
No. I mean, Cincinnati, if they agree to that, are going to have issues in the city of Cincinnati, because there's already been all kind of Joe Burrow sightings in Cincinnati and in Columbus, and Joe Burrow's actually got a Burrow steak at Jeff Ruby's Steakhouse in Columbus and was there eating it yesterday. So I think the other thing you got here is it seems that Joe Burrow wants to be a Cincinnati Bengal, and there's not many guys like that.
Well, I think his dad went on the radio, too, and said Joe Burrow would like to be a Bengal or something like that.
Yeah, he wants to be a Bengal. He's from Ohio.
Yeah, I mean, he wants to play for the hometown team. He's made it quite clear. I think some of this is all smoke and mirrors from Cincinnati. Cincinnati hasn't come out and said, we're definitely taking Joe Burrow. And we know how that goes in the draft. People like to play mind games and stuff. I think that's what they're doing. But if I'm Cincinnati, I'm privately telling Joe Burrow, like, don't worry, we've got you. We're definitely taking you number 1 overall.
Well, what's the earliest they can sign him?
I don't know, but they want him as soon as possible. They want him in that locker room.
They need to go ahead and sign him, I think. But
let's do it right now.
All right, Tom Brady. Where do you think Tom Brady goes? Because everybody seems to think this is a slam dunk that he's going to go be a Charger. Any other teams you think may be able to make a run at him?
Listen, Tom Brady's a really interesting case because he legitimately is the one guy I think could go almost anywhere. Like any of the available spots, I think he could go to. Just because he's Tom Brady, I think it's hard because I'm trying to figure out, like, there's so many things that would go into it, like the weather or what city is in. He could nitpick all that kind of stuff and go from there. The Chargers are one that I've heard a lot. I still think there's a chance he goes back to New England, although it's kind of looking slimmer and slimmer by the day just because there's so much rumors floating around. I feel like if there was really a set deal for him to go back to New England, we would have heard more concrete stuff that was taken care of. I don't know. Do you take him in like a Carolina or something like that if you're going to move Cam Newton? Do you take him in, like, does Carolina work? Does Chicago work? I don't know.
No, I mean, this is the thing. I think he's going to want to go somewhere where he could win. Carolina's not that place. Outside of Christian McCaffrey, you've now lost Luke Kuechly. You don't have a bunch of receivers. Your offensive line's bad. Chicago, offensive line is decent. They really don't have much of a running game. Wide receivers, they're not real deep there, but they do have a great defense. But it's Chicago. And I would say with Brady, I mean, if he's got to live there, the weather may matter. But if he's just playing there and commuting from somewhere, I mean, let's face it, he's lived in New England for how long? It can't be that big a deal. Plus, I mean, him and Terry Bradshaw, to me, are the two greatest bad weather quarterbacks I've ever seen. And, I mean, the Chargers, I guess, makes sense. I just can't see him being a Charger. But then again, I probably wouldn't be able to see Johnny Unitas being a San Diego Charger either.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's not going to feel right no matter where he goes. It's anywhere but New England. It just will look weird. But
Joe Montana actually made sense in Kansas City to me at the time. He did. But I think what that might have been was he was being replaced at San Francisco by Steve Young, so it wasn't like he was forced out. But this is the thing. I mean, the thing weird about this is all the success, and Brady actually looks like he wants to get out of New England.
Yeah, I know. That's the interesting part. Is that I feel like, again, if he was going to stay, I feel like he would have said something on more along like, I want to stay. And he hasn't come out and said that. So it does make me feel like, this might be a legitimate case where he's ready to move on as well.
Well, I think it's also possible where he's just trying to get a huge contract right now. And the other thing is he's talked about wanting to play till he's 45 before. Does that limit where he can go? Because then you're looking at a 3-year contract for a 42-year-old man.
Yeah, exactly. Most teams don't want to pick that up. I don't think maybe New England at this point. New England's famous for getting rid of players before they hit that point where they're sharply declining. Maybe New England doesn't even want to pick that deal up at this point. But if we want to talk about like an outside, what about like Oakland? What if Oakland moves on from Derek?
There is no Oakland. It's Las Vegas now.
Oh, that's a good point. It still says Oakland on the website, but.
But how about this?
Right.
If it's Las Vegas, does that make it even more interesting for him?
I don't know. I'm not Tom Brady, but maybe it does. Maybe there's some kind of allure there that for Las Vegas, but I don't know. There's still all these rumors that Gruden's not happy with Derek Carr, even though it's not really Derek Carr's fault. There's just not a lot on that offense right now. But you never know. Like you never know what John Gruden's going to do. John Gruden's kind of a wild card at head coach.
Yeah, and let's face it, John Gruden is a big-time attention whore.
Yeah, he likes the media to be talking about him and have a little bit of a presence there, even though they're not winning.
And I assume Mark Davis is like his daddy Al, and he probably is too. So the thing is this, if you bring in Tom Brady, it doesn't matter whether you think he makes your team better or not. It gets more eyes on you, which is what these guys want. They want the lights. They want the eyes on them. I mean, what do you think about the Dallas Cowboys?
Oh, that'd be a fun. Well, it's too bad Anthony's not here for this one, but that would be interesting. But do you really think Tom Brady's going to go to a team that lost to the New York Jets? I don't know if he will do that.
Well, I think this. He lost to the Miami Dolphins.
That's
but
a good point.
this is the thing, though, and he said he wants to mentor a young quarterback. You could take Tom Brady down there behind a good offensive line with a good defense. He's got some weapons. He's got a great running back. And the owner there is an attention whore also.
You're
and
right.
also, if you're
First
New
down,
England, then you don't have to give give Dak Prescott what he wants, which is a huge contract.
That's right. And there just seems to be some apprehension there about actually giving Dak Prescott the money. There seems to be some worry. If it was really going to be done, I feel like it would have been done by now. You wouldn't have waited because you've got the money to do it. And if you're so sure about it, you should just make the move. Now, it's kind of funny that Dallas now is the team that's not paying Dak Prescott because they kept Jason Garrett for so long and they were so unwilling to let go of him. And now it feels like they're not willing to pay Dak Prescott up front. But if they do decide to just let Dak Prescott walk, yeah, Brady's probably in play.
Well, and the other question then is, what do the Patriots do?
Yeah, that leaves the Patriots kind of out in the cold. And that's a difficult one because you want a disciplined quarterback if you're New England because you want a guy who can get it done, who has the experience, who probably has already had some playoff experience. And that makes it really interesting because now you're looking at, well, Dak Prescott's out there then. If Brady goes to Dallas, Dak Prescott is out there. And who else? You got maybe other veterans in the market like a Drew Brees, maybe. You don't want Jameis Winston, and you probably don't want Phil Rivers.
Teddy Bridgewater?
Leave one. Teddy Bridgewater, yeah.
And I'll bring up this again because I've had somebody inside of a NFL office, it's located in Cincinnati, that still swears to me that Bill Belichick would love to have Andy Dalton.
Really?
Yeah, but see, I think the problem with the Patriots is not who's playing quarterback; it's everything else right now. Because even if Brady leaves, they still have bigger issues because their offensive line wasn't very good. They really didn't have a running game. I mean, the defense was good, but you don't have enough weapons at wide receiver. I mean, there's really not enough weapons offensively and enough people guarding them offensive line-wise where you could stick anybody there and just say we're going to win, including Tom Brady.
Yeah, because, Julian Edelman was the only player who was really consistent for Brady this year, and even he had some drops late in the season.
He was hurt, and the thing is this, he's over 30, and when you get a wide receiver that starts getting hurt, they usually don't stop getting hurt.
Yeah, he missed games last year, too. He missed all of 2017, so he has an injury history, and he is 33 right now, so he's going to be 34 at some point next season. I mean, just wonder, you need someone else there. And Mohamed Sanu, they brought in Mohamed Sanu, and that was supposed to fix everything. And that didn't fix anything at all. In fact, it probably made it worse because he got hurt as well. And when he was on the field, he didn't play well at all either.
Yeah. So is Jarrett Stidham the answer? Because we all heard about, all the reps in preseason that Stidham got and how he might be the guy. But I really have a hard time seeing Jarrett Stidham as a quality starting quarterback in the NFL.
Wait, he got in the field week 3, I think. And he threw an interception or something like that in the first 3 attempts. So he made it on the field. I think he got brought back to the bench after that too. He hasn't proven anything in my opinion, because he's been out there. Yeah, he has 4 pass attempts and one of them was an interception this season. So I'm not buying Jarrett Stidham at all. I watched him play in college. I watched him when he came here with Auburn. He came to Clemson. They played football, and he got beat by a defense. He got beat by the defense. He had some inaccurate throws. I think he's a flawed quarterback. He's not a bad quarterback, but I don't think he's a starter, in my opinion. It's definitely not for the Patriots, at least. Yeah,
and I still think what we're going to see here now is everybody's going to realize that a couple of years ago when, Bill Belichick wanted to keep Jimmy Garoppolo over Tom Brady, which I'm 90% sure was the case, and Robert Kraft didn't let him do that, that's going to be the killer to this dynasty and to this franchise.
Yeah, because now you're at a point where you were running out of options. You don't have that successor in the wings anymore. So, they've always had a backup plan in New England for almost everything. They've
always had the ability to get rid of a guy a year before they should have. And by doing that, they never drop off. And now they lost that opportunity because Jimmy Garoppolo is I don't understand why half the people in this country don't believe Jimmy Garoppolo is a legit quarterback yet.
Yeah, he did fine. Like he's not a bad quarterback. He did fine. He did everything they needed him to do in San Francisco. And now
I think he's a hell of a quarterback. I think he's better than Lamar Jackson. No doubt.
I don't know about that one, Mike.
Why? So you would rather have a quarterback that can't throw a football correctly?
He threw a football all right this year.
He did not. You know what? This is the thing. He threw 36 touchdown passes this year, Lamar Jackson. You know how many of those touchdowns out of those 36 passes were thrown against teams with losing records?
Majority, probably.
27. I mean, his 36 and 6, I think it was, weren't those these touchdown to interception numbers?
Yeah, those were it.
Against winning teams, those numbers were 9 and 3. And we saw, that's not counting the playoff game, where the Tennessee Titans completely exposed him. I'm telling you this, Jimmy Garoppolo, 3 years from now, people are going to consider one of the 3 or 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL. And everybody is still going to be sitting there marveling at what Lamar Jackson does in a regular season and trying to figure out why he loses in the playoffs all the time. Because all I know is this, when you look at the two, and I had this debate with some moron on Twitter. He only had 50 followers, so I stopped debating him because it wasn't worth my time. But when you look at it, who throws the better ball? Who's more accurate? It's Garoppolo. Who has better pocket presence? It's Garoppolo. I mean, the only thing Lamar Jackson has over Garoppolo is the ability to run. And Garoppolo's not a bad quarterback when it comes to being able to run out of the pocket. It's not like he's Peyton Manning. So when you tell me this, I think when people look at Lamar Jackson, they listen to what the Stephen A. Smiths and the Skip Baylesses say, and those are two men that know absolutely nothing about football. They never played it. They never coached it. They basically just get paid to run their mouths on TV. And all I know is this, the 6 for 8, 77 yards that people rip Garoppolo for. How many times did we see Lamar Jackson, especially against good teams? The game against the 49ers, he threw for 100 yards. He wasn't exactly asked to throw the ball either. The difference is this. The 49ers don't ask you to throw the ball because they want to run the ball and play power football. The Baltimore Ravens, when they're forced to throw, they lose. Put it like this. Lamar Jackson against the New Orleans Saints wouldn't have put up 48 points, thrown 4 touchdowns, and beat the Saints in New Orleans in a shootout. Not with his arm. Jimmy Garoppolo can beat you with the arm. I mean, how many games did Lamar Jackson beat a playoff caliber team with his arm?
Honestly, can't answer that. I don't think there was one looking down the line.
No. That's my point. Jimmy Garoppolo, the game against New Orleans, was one of the most impressive games I've seen any quarterback play this year. This is why I have so much trouble with the Super Bowl, because Patrick Mahomes is special. I think Patrick Mahomes is better than Jimmy Garoppolo. But I don't know that he's that much better they can overcome the 49ers having a more complete team. Because I think if it comes down to it, I think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to really surprise people about how good he is in the clutch.
But yeah, I don't even know if we'll come down to the clutch though. If you look at it, defense has won the Super Bowl a couple times in this recent decade. And Patrick Mahomes, right, he is special. But we saw a situation where Peyton Manning ran into Seattle Seahawks in the Super Bowl a couple years back.
Well, wait a second though. You're comparing you can't compare Patrick Mahomes to Peyton Manning. Can you give me this? Give me this. And the reason I'm saying that is because Peyton Manning is nowhere near as good as Patrick Mahomes. And the reason I say that is this. Can you name me a game in the 2 years that Mahomes has been a starter where he didn't play well?
No, not off the top of my head, no.
Can you name me a game where the Chiefs got blown out?
No, I think they were pretty close in every game.
Yeah, because he's special. Peyton Manning's not special like Patrick Mahomes. And I can tell you this.
All right.
I mean, he's just not. I mean, Peyton Manning, it was a quarterback that his lack of mobility meant if you could pressure him up the middle, he could not move out of the pocket and beat you. But, Jimmy Garoppolo could. I mean, Peyton Manning was limited. There was a way you could beat him. In Seattle, pressured him up the middle. They didn't blitz. They basically pressured him with the front four that was really good, and they let the DBs just catch his passes as he threw them to him. So the reason I would have a hard time seeing a blowout is because I've never seen Patrick Mahomes play terrible. I've seen him play against the Detroit Lions where he'll throw for 350 yards but no touchdowns. But he didn't play terrible. And the thing is, he's good enough, he always has his team in the game. I mean, hell, have we seen the 49ers blown out with Garoppolo?
I think they've been pretty close in every game as well. I don't think they've been, seriously blown out in a game yet.
Yeah, and Kyle Shanahan. Yeah, and I hear this stuff about how great a coach Kyle Shanahan is, but Kyle Shanahan's record's 4-20 when Jimmy Garoppolo's not the starting quarterback. And people forget that. And people will say, well, he had his backup quarterback, but I see Philadelphia win a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback. I saw the Saints win 5 or 6 games in a row with a backup quarterback. And the Mullins kid's not bad, but the difference is Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think that he's going to surprise people. I think the game will be a shootout. Right now, I would tend to actually favor the 49ers as of right now. I haven't looked at it that close yet, just because I think they have a far superior offensive line to Kansas City, and I think they have the best front seven in football. And I think when your O-line and your D-line are significantly better than the other teams, usually you're going to win the game.
Yeah, I'm going to San Francisco too early on, because I think they got with that front they've got, it's just monstrous. You look at all the guys up there, it looks like a Pro Bowl roster almost with the players.
Well, and how about this? When you look at Garoppolo's numbers, look at all the injuries. He was missing Kittle for part of the season. He was missing both starting tackles. He was missing his center. And this team still went, 12-4. And if you look at the last 8 games of the season they played, I mean, their worst opponents were the Falcons, who at the end of the year were hot and were a good football team. So, I mean, they ran the gauntlet. They beat New Orleans in New Orleans. They lost to Baltimore by 3 in Baltimore in terrible weather, which played into what the Ravens wanted to do. And Garoppolo, I thought in that game, if you're just looking at throwing the ball, outplayed Lamar. So I think Jimmy Garoppolo is being sold way short. I don't think that Kansas City should be the favorite here. And I'm not sold on either coach, but I am sold on the O-line and D-line for San Francisco, and I'm big-time sold on Patrick Mahomes. And I just think that people are going to be surprised at how well Jimmy Garoppolo plays in this game if he needs to.
Yeah, I fear that he won't get the opportunity to show what he has to do, because if they run the ball well and successfully, which we said we think they will, because Kansas City's not built to stop the run, then Garoppolo's not going to have to do as much, and then, they'll just slam him again anyways. They'll just hit him and say, well, he wasn't that good. He didn't do that much. But, if you play within the offense and you win a Super Bowl playing within the offensive scheme, I think that's pretty damn impressive.
Oh, I think this, though. I think he's still going to have to make throws. This is not the Green Bay Packers, who were completely overmatched by the 49ers. The Chiefs are going to score points. And the question is going to be, does Kyle Shanahan continue to run the ball if he falls behind 7 points? Or is he going to throw the ball? Because I really think with the wide receivers, with Kittle, Deebo Samuel, that there's enough weapons here that I think San Francisco could get in a shootout and win this game.
We saw them do it against New Orleans, remember? So they've got the opportunity to do this. Yeah. They can play.
We saw them do it with the Rams. And, people forget the Rams were playing to get in the playoffs at the end of the season when the Niners beat them. The Niners beat them in a shootout. So I think it's an extremely interesting football game, to say the least. I think it's a great matchup. Still don't know who I'm picking. Right now I would lean a little towards San Francisco because I have since last April. So I hate to break away from that, but it's a game that really makes you think because Patrick Mahomes is really special. I know Bobby Sheridan from the Sheridan Report is the first one I heard use this comparison, and it was a while back. And the comparison was Patrick Mahomes is the closest thing to John Elway's ever seen. And John Elway may be the greatest quarterback that ever lived. And I say that because of this. He only won 2 Super Bowls, but he went to 5. And the first 3 teams he took to the Super Bowl, I don't think Tom Brady or Joe Montana could have ever got that team to the Super Bowl. And the thing is, when you look at the 10 biggest plays that John Elway is remembered for, almost every one of them happens at a playoff game or a Super Bowl, and they're almost all positive. And if you take a guy like Peyton Manning or Brett Favre and you put up their 10 most memorable moments, I think Brett Favre, 9 of his 10 are regular season moments, and Peyton Manning, probably 7 or 8 out of the 10 are. John Elway, probably 9 out of the 10 or 8 out of the 10 are playoff or Super Bowl moments. So I think John Elway gets short-sticked a lot because I think that he was extremely special. And I think if you got a chance to watch John Elway, if you're at the age where you could have seen it, the Patrick Mahomes comparison is dead on. Because, John Elway would be the same thing. He'd be sprinting out to the right, be outside the hash. All of a sudden, he's throwing the ball all the way across the field and hitting a receiver between 2 defenders. Patrick Mahomes does the same thing. They both had an innate ability to be able to find people that nobody else could. Kind of a peripheral vision. Kind of like watching Magic Johnson run the fast break for the Lakers. Or Larry Bird when he catches the ball in the post and he somehow finds Robert Parrish or Kevin McHale behind him and nobody else knew that he was there. I just think they had that innate ability, and that innate ability allows them to make everybody around them better. I mean, if you look at Elway's first 3 Super Bowls, only one of those 3 teams had a 1,000-yard rusher, and that 1,000-yard rusher was Bobby Humphrey, who ran for like 1,020 yards in 1989. I mean, defensively they were solid, but he didn't have a bunch of wide receivers. Name me John Elway's receivers in the 1980s.
I can't give you that.
I can, but that's because I'm old. But I was guys like Vance Johnson. I mean, they were good receivers, but they were nothing like he had in the late 90s. And the point is, in the late 90s, when you get the Sharps and the Terrell Davises running the ball and the greatest offensive line that I think I've ever seen, the 1998, Broncos, I mean, those teams won Super Bowls and they were dominant, especially that second team, who only lost, I think, 1 or 2 games that year. And they were dominant on offense and defense. And John Elway, Super Bowl 32, you had the helicopter. He jumps in and makes it. And the difference between a guy like John Elway and Brett Favre is this. Super Bowl 32, games 24-24. John Elway gets the ball in the last 6 minutes. He drives his team down and scores a touchdown. Brett Favre gets the ball back with 2 minutes left. He's got the ball at the 40-yard line. He goes 4 and out. That's the difference between the two. John Elway, when I think of the top 10 quarterbacks of all time, I don't care who anybody lists 4 through 10. 1, 2, 3 is Brady, Montana, and Elway, and you can put the 3 in any order you want. Because I think after those 3, everybody else is 2 steps below them.
So do you think that Patrick Mahomes is going to pull this off and have that? If you think he's John Elway.
No, I think he's the closest thing I've seen to John Elway, because me and Bobby have this argument all the time too. I don't think you can know this for another 5 or 6 years and see how it plays out, because you never know. Hell, he could get hurt and never be the same, or maybe somebody figures him out. But I think Patrick Mahomes is a guy that when I watch him, and you know what I think of Russell Wilson, but I don't think Russell Wilson's ever getting on the level of the 3 guys I just brought up. Patrick Mahomes very well could.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. He's 24 years old right now. He won the MVP last year. He made the AFC Championship game. Now he's playing in the Super Bowl. This could be, I mean, if New England does entirely fall off, the Chiefs might actually put something together here where they start perennially competing for Super Bowls.
Yeah, but remember this is a time that even if you have Mahomes, it's almost impossible to do, which is what makes it so special that the Patriots have done it. Because with free agency, you're losing guys every year. And at some point, Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Travis Kelce, one or two of them are going to be gone because you can't afford to pay them. Because you're going to have to give Patrick Mahomes pretty much every dollar in the entire state. So that's going to make it hard to replicate this run. Plus, Andy Reid is not 45 or 50 years old and got 20 years to go probably. Let's face it, he's a little overweight. It's not good for your heart and your health. But, but yeah, I think Patrick Mahomes is good enough that they're always going to be around a playoff team. And we'll see what happens. But I think that it's very possible that he's special enough that he could do what New England's done. But I think what New England did was kind of more of from the front office perspective. Because they always got rid of guys at the right time, and they brought in guys that were better.
You think probably this current Chiefs team might go the way of like a Seattle Seahawks team and end up losing some of their stardom and then still be playoff caliber, but not like Super Bowl caliber in a couple of years then? Is that what you're thinking?
That's what common sense would tell me, because that's what happens to everybody else. It happened to the Green Bay Packers. I mean, they won the Super Bowl, but then, the running game wasn't as good. The defense wasn't as good. Everything kind of dropped off. So that would be what happens with most great quarterbacks now. But if he is as special as I think he is, he may be so good that it doesn't matter what else is around him. Because remember, Patrick Mahomes is basically a bigger, stronger, faster Russell Wilson.
Yeah, pretty much. He's a step up. He's a step up from Russell Wilson. That's saying something. Because I think Russell Wilson's top 3 guy in the league easily.
Well, and the thing is this, though. Russell Wilson's a top 3 guy in the league because of his mental makeup. Now, the thing that really sells me on Patrick Mahomes is when you see these, if you go on YouTube, you can find the Chiefs do this mic'd up thing almost every game. And when you hear him mic'd up, the way he interacts with his team is almost the same way you hear Russell Wilson. He's having fun. He's extremely positive. You never really hear him bitch at anybody. He is just encouraging everybody. And I think that, like I said, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes are the same guy, only Mahomes is a little bigger, a little faster, a little stronger, and he throws the ball a little bit harder. So I think they're the same guy. I just think that he has physical traits that Russell Wilson doesn't have. And not that Russell's physical traits are bad. It's just Patrick Mahomes is just a bigger version of it. Mentally, I think they're the same quarterback. And with that being said, if mentally they're the same and physically he's a little better, I think he's got every chance to be with the John Elways of the world when this is all said and done.
Yeah, I mean, he's off to a hot start. He's going to have every opportunity. Like I said, he's 24 years old. His whole career's ahead of him. He could easily be at this level for another 9 to 10 years.
Oh, hell, the way the world is now with nutrition and everything, we've seen it with Brady. He might still be at this level 15 years from now.
Yeah, and that's scary for every other team in the AFC East. I mean, in the AFC in general, because you don't know how to compete with that right now.
Yeah, because you cannot defend him. I mean, he's like, Michael Jordan or Larry Bird. You never saw Michael Jordan or Larry Bird score less than 20 or 25 points in a game, no matter how well you defended him. Hell, in 1989 and 90 with the Jordan rules and the Pistons, I mean, Jordan being held to 25 points a game was considered holding him to 25 points a game. There's very few players in the history of any sport, especially basketball, where you actually feel like you won the game because you held him to just 25 points. And the point was, if you look at him a few years before that, like in 1986, they play in the playoffs. He scores 63 and still loses to the Celtics. But he became the better player when you get to 89, 90, 91, and you got players around him. And he doesn't have to score 63 points to have a chance to win the game. And Kansas City's got enough talent around him that they're really dangerous. And I think that when people say if Andy Reid wins this Super Bowl, he proves he's a Hall of Famer, I think with the talent at quarterback there, Andy Reid probably should win at least 3 or 4 Super Bowls to prove how good he is, because I think Patrick Mahomes is a guy that's hard to screw up.
But yeah, you look at him, how he ad-libs plays. Like, a lot of stuff he does is not planned when he actually gets in the game.
Yeah.
He'll do, like, the look-off pass, and he'll run like 20 yards and take a couple hits and still score a touchdown. So a lot of this stuff is not pre-planned. It's just him being special.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, when you got a special guy, that's why I think Joe Burrow could possibly be a special guy. And as a Bengals fan, I know this.
You hope he's a special guy.
Yeah, the only way the Bengals are ever going to win a Super Bowl is if they get a special guy. And by a special guy, I mean a dude that comes in and he makes everybody believe you can win, and he makes everybody better. You know, without that in Cincinnati, Andy Dalton's really good. You put Andy Dalton in New England with Bill Belichick, if Belichick picks up some weapons, hell, he could win a Super Bowl. He's never going to win it here, though, because Andy Dalton's not the kind of guy that can put your team on the back and carry you across the line. And Cincinnati is not the kind of organization that's ever going to give him enough talent around him where he can just kind of game manage to the Super Bowl. New England could. You know, and I'll put it like this, 2015, before Dalton got hurt, they had built that kind of talent around him, and they were the 1 or 2 seed. He gets hurt. A.J. McCarron comes in, screws it up. They have to play a wild card game to get knocked out. And in the very next year, they start not re-signing guys. And you lose Sanu, you lose Jones. The next year, you lose Whitworth. And then all of a sudden, Andy Dalton's got to be able to put it on the back and do it himself. And he's just not that kind of guy. He's a hell of a quarterback, but there's not many quarterbacks in the NFL that are that kind of a guy. And I do believe this, going back to Jimmy Garoppolo, I think Garoppolo 5 years from now, people may consider him that type of guy, because I really like the way he carries himself too, because you can tell he believes he's going to win, and I think he does make everybody around him better.
Well, I do remember when he first showed up at San Francisco in 2017, they won 5 games in a row with him. So he's had that. We've seen him win with an inferior team to the one he has right now. So he does have the ability to go out there and win games.
Well, I think his record as a starting quarterback here is like 20-5 or something. And when he's not playing, they're like
21-5.
Yeah, 21-5. I think they're 4-20 when he's not playing. So that should tell you all you need to know about whether Jimmy Garoppolo is any good or not. But he's not flashy, so we don't really pay attention to him. You know, Patrick Mahomes does things we've never seen done before. And if they were only done by all-time greats. But I think it'll be interesting to watch both of these guys, and I think the Super Bowl is going to be a great game. I just wish the halftime show would be better.
It never is, Mike. It's never getting better.
I know. I didn't even know Jennifer Lopez still sang.
I didn't either.
I didn't know Shakira still sang. I never knew she ever did sing, but she shake her butt. That's about it. But all right, Sam. What is tomorrow? Thursday?
Yep.
We'll be back at 1 tomorrow.
Yep, sounds good.
All right. You want to tell everybody where they can follow you on Twitter and find you?
Yeah. You can go on to Twitter and follow me at Sam_Teets33. I post articles there regularly, along with other sports content, so feel free to give me a follow, and you'll see plenty of content coming up from me here during the Super Bowl week, and the weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, as well as during the off-season.
Yeah, next week on the NFL show, we will have guests all week long, every day, hopefully, to talk a little Super Bowl 54. You can follow us on The Grueling Truth at Grueling Truth, and make sure you come back tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern Time for a live NFL show. But for now, for Sam Teets, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.